everybody, welcome. It's the 20th year we're doing this clinic on how to steer the head of the Charles. Really psyched that you're able to join us. John Lambert, who's a member of the Rules and Appeals Committee, my partner in crime for this for the last 20 years, is going to go over the penalties on the course and how all of that works as well. But we're going to start out with the best way to steer the course, get the fastest time, and then he's going to come on and help you and help everybody understand the best way to make sure that you don't get tagged with any penalties along the way. All right, we're going to get right into it. Thanks again, as always, to Nielsen, Kellerman, and Concept 2, who've been with us since the beginning to support this clinic and cheer everybody on at the head of the Charles every year. The Coxbox GPS, if you don't know about this, check it out at the NK tent. And then Concept 2, cheering you on as always, and a big supporter of the head of the Charles every single year. Here we go. There's a clinic handbook. You can download it at coxandnation.com. That's got details on how to steer the course. We're going to show you everything with videos, views from above the bridges, in the boat, stern and bow shots of everything. But here, this will detail how to execute it, so you can read through it as well. And then also some tips on good steering practices from the coxswain seat. All right, so how do you go fast at the head of the Charles? Well, it's a combination of all of these things. Good blade work, a sustainable rhythm, that's really important. It's a 3-mile course. Efficient steering is key. It's definitely a coxswain's race, and a clean course. Those 4 things, put them all together, and that's the way to have the fastest time that you can get on this course. The toughest head racing course in the world, in my opinion. All right, so with your steering, number one, as a coxswain myself, you want to make sure that when you're steering, you're having as little effect on the balance of the boat as possible. So in the booklet, you'll see the one that you can download. There are some tips on holding the tiller correctly, how to steer subtly on straight stretches, and then communicating clearly with your team when they're going to feel the effect of your steering. And they most certainly will on turns like the Weeks and through the Elliott Bridge. Okay, so you always want to learn the course, and you want to learn about the crews that are starting in front of and behind you. And then if you can practice the tough spots on the course in advance, you can do, if possible, and get there a couple days early, then it's worth doing. There's a lot of detail on the course itself in your regatta registration packet. And as far as the crews that are starting in front of and behind you, look at the start list and do a little research. If you know that you might catch them early, try to strategize for where that might happen so that you're ready for it. And as far as practicing on the course, if you can't get to the Charles in advance to do a dry run, when I was in college, one of the things that I would do is we would just ghost race the race in the middle of Lake Mendota when I was at the University of Wisconsin. So those are little tactics you can use as well. All right, this course has got to be navigated. Here are 8 key areas, including in the start chute, which can be a very dangerous area in the warm-up. So we're going to talk about that in detail. And I'll help you review the course, and then we'll strategize for each section of the race. And this is really important. Once you learn this from me, it would be a really good idea to talk to your teammates and make sure that they understand how you're going to go about it. So it's great to have not only a pep talk before this race, but also a talk about exactly how you're planning to execute it, where you're going to need their support and help. Okay, so here's a preview of the course from inside the boat. And we're going to take you through in high speed. This is in the start chute, getting ready, approaching the BU boathouse, which is the start line. And here we go. You'll cross through 2 yellow tetrahedrons and then go through the BU bridge. Best to go through that single file if possible. Off to starboard is Magazine Beach and a bunch of green buoys. You're going to want to make sure to keep those off your starboard side. As you round Magazine Beach, you'll come out pointed on the powerhouse stretch. This is the one straight shot on the course. It's about 1,500 meters long. First, you'll go through River Street. You can pick either the center or the starboard arch, the Cambridge Shore Arch. And then you'll come through Western Avenue Bridge. This is going to set you up for the Weeks turn, the famous 90-degree turn to port. If you can get a clean line on this, awesome. A lot of times you'll end up going through this bridge with some traffic. The key is to take the bridge, the turn before the bridge, come out pointed on the Anderson Bridge. As you pass the Weld Boathouse, that's about halfway. Now you have about a 75-degree turn back through Anderson. Right here is 2 miles down in the 3-mile race. And then you got about 250 meters of a straight stretch before the big turn, which is a long, gradual turn to port. You're going to see orange buoys off your port blades. You can put your blades over them, but I'd be very careful if you choose to do it so you don't hook a buoy. Very sharp the turn is right when you come out before the Elliott Bridge. You want to diagonal through that bridge, and then you're going to hug the Cambridge Shore. As you come around this turn, it's about 500 meters to go. This is the straight shot to the finish line. Again, you'll look for the 2 yellow tetrahedrons, and that's the end of the course. Okay, so there it is, high speed. Now let's go back to the start and talk about this warm-up pattern. This is a really critical, it's a potentially dangerous area, and it's really most important to listen to the course marshals. They are excellent. They're going to give you really good guidance and tell you where you should be at all times. So when you come down here to this part of the, when you come down here to get ready to get into the chute, if you're inside 15 minutes, they're probably going to put you right in the start chute, but otherwise they're going to give you time to go around this square that is the warm-up pattern. Okay, so when you're coming around that square, you can see there is some lines coming out of it to enter the chute. And at the same time where it says queuing zone at the bottom of your picture, that's another area where people can enter. This area is potentially really dangerous. You want to make sure that you are looking around, your head's on a swivel, so that you don't have 2 boats coming from opposite directions. If there is a penalty in this area, it's going to cost you 60 seconds, and that is a new rule this year. So you don't want to race your own you don't want to wreck your own race or somebody else's before the race even begins. So be extra careful when you're here in this area. Okay, and here I'm just marking this as the spot where the things can get kind of dangerous. Okay. All right, so here, now this is a map of how they're going to feed everybody into the start chute. So if you're an odd numbered bow, you're going to be on the port side, so the Boston side of the chute. And if you're even, you'll be on the Cambridge side, and there'll be a marshal right there, and they're going to call you right up to the line. So that's how they're going to feed everybody into that chute so you can cross the line single file. And here's what it looks like. Look at that. And this is where you can get an idea of how you can have some issues when people come in here where my cursor is to feed into the chute, and then also people coming down from the square. So super important that you're looking around. There you can see how they feed you right into the BU bridge, and there you can see how narrow it is and why you want to go through single file.
Stay like this. Just be a little lighter, guys. We don't want to catch them before the bridge.
Yeah. The clean leg. You have 3 strokes to the start. You are now on the
Okay, and let's.
They'll set you up for a good margin here. And again, if the boat in front of you is slow, you might want to hang back a little bit so you don't catch them before the bridge.
Going in 2 on the fly. Get set. This one, go 3/4. Go half. Go 3/4.
And here we are getting the boat up to speed. Before we cross, there's the yellow cones.
Nice. And we're over. Good. All right. Nice. Length and a half of open behind these guys. All right. And we're on the move. Nice job.
And it's a good idea right when you cross the line to let your crew know the distance between the boat in front of you and the boat behind you, so they've got a gauge on some starting margins there. All right, as I mentioned, you want to go through that bridge single file. When you come out, you're going to be right along Magazine Beach. There's a row of green buoys there. Now, it's good to know that a lot of times people want to ride these buoys, but the bad side of that is they can hook them and drag a buoy out into the course. It's really important that you stay to the port side of those buoys, because otherwise it's 5-second penalty for the first one you miss, and then it's a 10-second penalty for any buoys after the first one. So that's a spot where a lot of times buoys can get dislodged. And, you know, if everybody misses a dislodged buoy, you might not get penalized for it, but most of the time you will. So make sure you stay far enough to port as you come around that you don't miss any of those buoys. And then after that, this is also a really great place to pass. All right. So, and secondly, be alert for small boats launching from that beach, because I can tell you one year I was coxswain Team USA and we started first. And so there was a little gap between the events and somebody launched off that beach. We actually had to stop, and we lost the race by less than a second. Okay, so this is another spot. Pay attention, and hopefully no one's crossing in front of your race, but you got to be careful in case somebody does. All right, now let's talk about passing. All right, so here's the thing. You're coming out of the BU Bridge. You're seeing, all right, this is my chance to start, you know, moving through the field. So the most important thing is make it really obvious when you're within a boat length of open water. And what I mean by that is point your bow where you want to go. If you do that, then the crew that is ahead of you is gonna see that, so that's gonna be the first sign. The next thing is, if they don't move over, you wanna yell over to them, be assertive, but be controlled. And here's an example. We're passing on your port side, move to starboard. I need some room on port, please move over. If you swear at the other boat, well, that's where you might be able to get in a little bit of trouble. Generally, the officials, if you're fired up and you're saying, if you drop a couple of words to your own crew because you're excited, they're not going to have a problem with that. But if you drop some words at another crew and it's disrespectful, then you're looking at an unsportsman like penalty. So try not to do that. Okay, your bow person can be great, especially if you're in an 8, because they're going to be that much closer to the boat in front of you. So you can prepare that person in advance and say, hey, if I need some help when I'm passing another crew, can you yell over to them and tell them, you know, we're coming up on your port or starboard side, move over. And that can be very helpful. Again, don't drop any swear words at them though. Cool. All right, so sometimes passing can get a little tricky. Sometimes you'll have a crew that's defiant, and in that case, be firm, but don't be a jerk. You might say that they're risking a penalty if they don't give way. But more often than not, what you'll have is a crew that panics, and sometimes they just don't know what to do. So if that's the case, you know, give your own crew a heads up. And then the other thing that you might do is say to the other crew, you know, where you need them to go to give way. So you could say, move to starboard, I'm coming up on your port side, and then that can help that situation. And here's an example.
We're gonna start moving on this pass right now. Great, nice guys, yeah. All right, we're gonna come on your inside. Nice guys. All right, CLI, move to port, move to port, move to port, move to port. Yep. You guys need to move over. Yep. Good. All right, you're gonna have blades just off port side. Nice guys. Good job. All right. Yeah.
Those bridges can be really helpful too in amplifying your voice, as you just saw in that example. Okay, so sometimes, you know, you hate it when this happens, but sometimes you're gonna be passed. And when that happens, you wanna be strategic about that. So make sure that they make their intentions obvious before you give up the right of way. They might come up, and if their bow is pointed on the other side, I might just leave it alone and let them choose which path they want to take. And then the other thing is just if there's no obstacles or corners and there's other boats in the vicinity that you can work off of, you can just use that to keep morale up. So sometimes, you know, you got to remember the goal is the fastest time. And even though you may not be beating the one boat that's passing you right now, you want to remember there's other boats out in the field that you can race against, even though you're not able to see them, directly. Okay, so now here, this is the powerhouse stretch. You've come around Magazine Beach and you're setting up for one of two arches, the center arch or the Cambridge arch, which is the starboard one. Pick your arch based on traffic. It's the same distance. It's within 5 meters between the two lanes, and I'll let you do a little research on your own to decide which one's faster. Here, you can see this two boats going through the Cambridge arch. That one's very narrow. It's hard to get two through at the same time.
Good, nice.
That one's colliding.
Blades right here. Just stay controlled, okay? Keep pushing back.
This is the grade 8.
Keep pushing back. We got a bridge right ahead of us.
They're going for the center arch.
Good, just stay controlled. Let's go. Finishes for 5 in 2. Ready?
So she's gonna wait to make her move
Finishes now.
to ensure they get to the bridge clean.
Complete. Okay, right back in it now. That's it. That's it. Ready? As soon as we get clear of this bridge, we're gonna charge. Okay?
Your goal should be to navigate all the
Up
obstacles
and go.
as
Ready?
cleanly and without altercation as you can.
Push now.
And now they're gonna charge.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So there is room for two boats in that center arch, but if the boat doesn't give way right away, it can get a little dicey. So that was excellent handling of that situation. All right, so here you see River Street to Western Avenue. That's a straight shot, same distance, regardless of arch selection. So pick the arch that has the least amount of traffic. That would be my advice to you. Now, as you come out of the Western Avenue Bridge, your next mark is the Weeks, and you want to point for this little blue dome that's up on the shore, okay? Point your bow on that. It's directly above the orange, the outermost edge of the orange buoy line. You're going to hold that point until you get to the turning tree, and then that's where you're going to start your move. So the key to the Weeks Bridge turn is to actually execute the 90-degree turn before you go through the bridge. And this blue dome and that turning tree are your key marks to show you exactly how to execute the turn. So now I'm going to show you some examples.
Stable and rhythmic. That's the way. Good. Nice, guys.
The blue dome is going to eventually disappear into the shore,
Batman.
but it's where the bridge meets the shore. There's the tree.
Now, go! Hit it! Big starboards! And big starboards!
And it's when your bow crosses the tree.
Nice, Shayla! Big finish now. That's right, it's gonna be
You're going to use your starboards to help you on this turn if you're in a 4 or an 8.
Guys, I love it! Yeah, Shayla! Nice! Even pressure. Beautiful, guys.
Okay, so these turn like the Weeks, it's 90 degrees, so you want to make sure that your crew knows it's coming. I would practice the Weeks Bridge corner in advance, even though I was in the middle of a lake. We would literally talk through exactly how we were going to execute it. So this is how I do it. You'd let them know, all right, Weeks Bridge, it's coming up. I'm starting the corner to port. So I would start steering right when I got to the tree, and then I would call in my starboards, tell them to hit it, and then they bring up the pressure, and then that helps you actually hang that corner. And sometimes if you're, let's just say that your starboard side's not that strong, or maybe your port side is too strong, you might then ask your port side to reduce the pressure. So if you're trying to hang the corner and it's not quite happening, you could have your port side ease off. And then very important, once you come through the turn, make sure you tell everybody to return to even pressure and that you're straightening the boat out.
We're
Okay, so here's an 8.
Let's get everybody breathe in, get low, right on. And I need more direct catches on this one. Chest up, sit up, hook it. Sit up, better. That's it, guys. Hanging the turn, staying tall, getting ready to hit it, holding my line, starting the turn on this one, turning. Yep, killing it. Hang back now with me. Starboard's coming in. On this one now, starboard. Go now! Go now! Yeah, that's it! Killing it through the weeks. Sitting tall, coming through the arch. Ready to go even pressure.
You know, you've really crushed it if you come out of the arch
Straight back.
close to that port abutment with the orange buoys close to your port blades.
The length and a half, about 24. I need you to stay tall. Stay tall. BC! Get to starboard! Legs, quicker catches. Legs, quicker catches. They're not going to pick up this turn thrust. I will get you there, promise.
So in this
me.
case,
I will get you there.
she's still on the blue dome and she's trying to hold her point.
Starboard! Legs! Legs! Yes! Sharpen them, Cynthia! BC! No! Legs down! Legs! Columbia, stay to starboard! Sharpen!
So far, so good. She's still able to hold that point.
Columbia, stay to starboard! Now! Legs down! I get some late, it's okay. Yeah! Own it, ladies! All right, I like this.
Now she's having to steer a little bit,
Sit up. Oh, no.
and it's before the tree, so you're going to see that how she pulls it off
Yeah.
without getting to hold the point as long as she wants.
Eyes up. Stop. We're going to pass 3 crews. Passing them. Legs. Yes. Legs. Yeah. And I need you starboard to get ready. Yes, get starboard. Stop. Bigger.
So she has to start the turn a little later. She's still turning as she comes through,
Easy port. Sharp. Ready, Ollie. Back on it. Now.
and she finishes the turn about 5 strokes after the bridge.
Legs down.
And that's a very real example of how you can end up going through the Weeks Bridge, and an example of how you can weather it if you're not able to hold the points exactly as you want to. Okay, so how much space do you need if you're going through that bridge with traffic? All right, so here are some key pointers. Ideally, well, you want to be ahead of the crews that are off your starboard side if you can be. Otherwise, they're going to probably push you in too close to that abutment and wreck your turn. Okay, so if you can have at least a half a length of open water between your stern and the bow of the boat behind you, then you're going to have enough room. So this reinforces the point about when you're in between obstacles is where you want to get yourself in position. So sometimes you may have to increase or decrease pressure. We'll talk more about that as we go through this, but to get yourself in the best position to hang the corners with the points that you want. So here's an example. Our boat is on the inside. Oh, hang on. Got a frozen shot here. Okay, I'm gonna back up. Come back. Hang on a second. Oh, look at that. Hang on a second. My PowerPoint just froze. Okay, you guys, while we're fixing this, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and shoot.
Yes, this is the trusty Charles Adager coming to you live from Boston. Unfortunately, we've set up the live streams for with some settings that don't allow for comments. So that is a technical issue. Apologies to our viewers for not being able to comment live, but we'll do our best to get comments and questions to you after the presentation.
Go ahead and turn this. Okay, cool. All right, hang on a second, gang, and we're going to try to get this rolling again.
Control Alt Delete again.
Okay.
Out of about a length from bow to stern open. Let's go. Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Good. Starboard's just be ready because the corner is coming up. I'm going to try to push him
So
out.
here we are with the boat on the outside, and I'm trying to hold my feet on that blue dome.
She's in a bow loader, so she can't see us. All right, I see what's going to happen here. This is fine. We're going to let them go ahead. It's fine. We're going to stay just like this. And we're going to just make sure we hit it. She's trying to go in too tight already. So she's going to go wide. It's good. Sit up, everybody. Starboards, be ready to hit it. I'm starting to see it.
My heart rate was about 200 right here.
It's going to be good. Starboard's ready. Oh, this one. Go. 1, 2. Yeah. 3. Nice.
So having that room between their stern and my bow was how we pulled this off.
You got it. 7. You got it. Even pressure.
So there you see. Okay. Now here's an example of when you're on the outside of the crew coming into the turn. Same thing. You want to make sure you've got a half a length of open water or more so that you're not T-boned by the crew that's on the inside that has underestimated what the turn's going to take. So if you stay true to your headings, this corner is going to work for you as planned. Inside team's probably going to go wide, and then you can cut across or wake to take the turn nice and tight. Okay, so when should you increase pressure and the rate? When you think you can get ahead of a crash, if you're gaining on another crew and you think you can pass them before a bridge or an obstacle, or when you're gaining on another crew and you want to get on the inside before a turn. So here we are on the outside this time.
We now have overlap, and that is okay. Just nice and consistent like this.
And this is us realizing we're going to have to take the rating up to get ahead and get the line we want.
Gonna bust it because they are going to be in too tight. Got headwind, blowing to starboard, big, strong, and swinging. That's the way. Swing it long, swing it strong. Yeah, just like this. Yeah, guys. Here comes the corner. All right. Real good. You guys, I think we're going to need to jack it now, actually. Nice, big legs. All
So you
right,
can see them off port,
everybody, going to kick it up.
and I'm realizing I need that half a length of open water to make this happen.
These guys, so we need to go. Yep, need to go now. Yeah, that's it.
So I'm pointed on where the bridge meets the shore. Blue Dome has just disappeared.
Big swing. Nice guys. Nice guys. That's the way. Yeah. All right, you see them, team. Keep an eye on them because we're going to cut across and they're going to go wide. Ready, guys? All right, starboards. I'm starting to steer it. I'm watching them. Good. Yeah. Okay, we got it. We got it. That's good. Just like this. Get ahead of them now. Big swing. Yep. That's it. Straight. We're straight. We're straight. Stay straight. Just a little more now. All right. Good. Watch your blade.
The bow seat just feeling clear.
Straight. All right, guys. Good. All right. Nice, you guys. That was scary. All right.
Our heart rate still goes up on that one to this day. Okay, so now here are some shots to give you a view of some trouble here under the bridge. You can see this boat on the inside. They're in way too tight, and then they get crowded and they cannot hang the turn at that point. This is why it's so important to hold that line and hang the turn at the tree. These guys are all steering way too late, and the boat on the left is in way too tight as well. Okay, now here you're going to see some crews that have chosen to hug the orange line on their way in. Then they realize they can't hang the corner, and you can see they're heading over to Harvard Square in a collision too. same thing. If you stay in too tight, you want to come out ideally pointed on that Anderson Bridge. Instead, these guys are going to be picking up a funnel cake from the vendors there at the on the Cambridge shore. Yeah, same thing. Okay, so trust me when I tell you about those headings, because when you use them, you actually end up pointed on the center arch of that next bridge and not taking a 30-second detour. Okay, so now here's a shot of what it looks like from the top of the Weeks Bridge. And here's a crew with an excellent turn. The tree on the left, that bright lemon yellow one, is the turning tree. You can see they held their line on the blue dome. They got to the tree, and here they cut it. And that is just textbook. Perfect turn. Now you can see the orange buoys off on the starboard side of the screen. The only time you should hug those buoys is if you have a dagger rudder. So a one-piece rudder where the whole thing rotates. Those boats can turn on a dime. You can hug every corner and take every turn in 2 or 3 strokes. But most people don't have that. They have a standard tiller, so then you want to use these points. Here's a good example of a boat that stays in too tight, and then the one that is has held the point. Now they're starting their turn at the tree. That's the one behind. And you can see the first boat going through is going to come through and go wide, and the second boat is going to come through perfectly and pointed on the center arch of the Anderson Bridge. Got a new clip for you this year. Women's single, this is Marley Blue. And you're going to see her going through with traffic approaching the Weeks Bridge. You can see in the video on the bottom corner, there's a sculler just off to the right. That's off her port side. And so she's looking at the arch. And she was trying to hold her point, but she knows that she's got this person on the inside. Yep, so she gets back on her point to give herself the room she needs to get the turn. You can see the blades of the other sculler in the picture in the lower right corner. And then she kind of pauses for a second because she knows this person's going to go wide. She wants to get through the bridge cleanly. And she also doesn't want to go wide because she knows it's going to cost her a lot of time. So she slows down, lets that person go through, and look at this. The other single is going to go wide, and now she's going to come through and have her point on the center arch of the Anderson Bridge. So that was really good tactical rowing there in a single to make sure she was able to keep her line and not lose time. Okay, so as I said, you want to come out pointed on the middle arch, middle of that center arch of Anderson Bridge. This picture is you're looking through the Weeks Bridge at that center arch. And one thing that's super important, the Cambridge Shore Arch in the Anderson Bridge is illegal. It's because it's super dangerous. So you shouldn't be able to go through there because there's a green buoy line between you and that lane. So as long as you stay on the course, you're going to be fine. Okay, so the turn through the Anderson Bridge is to starboard, but immediately after you go through the Anderson Bridge, you want to get in position for the big turn to port. So once you get through that bridge, you can pass people on starboard as long as you can get your stern clear of their bow right after the turn, because you've got about 30 strokes to pass them cleanly before the big turn to port. And that big turn to port is a turn you definitely want to be on the inside.
This is what it comes down to. Nice job. 7, hit it. 8, coming level. 9.
So we are on the outside of this turn.
We are 20 strokes from that bridge.
So I'm trying to get ahead of the other 2 crews so I can get a good line.
You're up, Kristen. This is what it's all about. Nice. 3 boats headed for the bridge. We gotta go. Up 3. Hit it. Go. Bigger. Go. Bigger. Go. Bigger. If we can get ahead of these guys, we have a chance. That's it. Good. Nice. Doing it. Good guys. Good guys. Nice. Keep going. We're going to pull it off. We're going to pull it off. Nice. Keep going. You got it. Yes. Good job. that. Everybody, let's lengthen 3 beats and breathe on this one. Breathe, jump.
So, example, obviously I've used a couple of words, which we removed for the sake of the presentation, but because they were in my own boat and it was excitement about what we were doing and not directed in a negative way at anybody else, I didn't get tagged for them. Okay, so here's the other side of it. When to decrease pressure or to take the rating down. So if you're being passed or you're going to be forced to the outside on a long corner, or if you're barreling up on crews that are going under a bridge and that bridge cannot accommodate all of your boats. John's going to talk about that a little bit more in his portion of this presentation, but they call that piling on. And if you pile on to boats that are under a bridge, guess whose fault it is? It's yours. It's not theirs. They were already there. Okay? So just remember, the overall goal is the fastest time possible. All right. So if you don't have enough speed to pass somebody on starboard going through this turn, you would fall in behind them as you go through the turn, and then you would make sure your crew knows that they want to get ahead of that boat if they can before the big turn, and maybe take an attack there to pull that off so that you get the inside of that corner. And here's an example of that.
Corner, we're moving on bow 15. Move away from 17. Let's take more. It's gonna get tight through this bridge because 15 is catching 12. It's possible we might have to drop down to half pressure for a couple. Stay cool. We should make it. All right, this is gonna be a cluster. Stay loose. That's it. All right, guys, gonna back off just a little bit in a second. And now, easy, just easy. Trust me, easy. You're cool. Easy, easy, easy. Paddle, paddle, paddle. It's okay. It's okay. Good. Starboard's late. Ports, get ready to hit it. Starboard's take an air stroke. Ports, watch your blades. Good job. Keep going, ports. Ports, swing in this one. Go. Yup. Killed it. Yes. Sit up. Build it. This one. Let's go. All right, guys, we're going to pass these two boats, 15 and 12. We got 250 meters to do it. We got to get by 12 so we get the inside on this corner. You are kicking ass.
Cool. All right, and we did. So that's we got through that corner clean, and then we used that 250 meter stretch to get ahead. Now, here's your next point. The outermost edge of this buoy line is right below this white apartment building. It's just off to the side of the white apartment building. Sometimes the sun can make it hard to see the buoy line, so use that white apartment building as a gauge. You don't want to follow that. You want to beeline to the outside of that line.
Set. Ports in, go. Legs down, send. Sit up now. Yep. Sit up now. Even. I want you on the legs, on the shot. Right here, lock on. Right here, lock on. Yes, dogs. Yes, dogs. All right. I'm on the rudder a tiny bit to get through all these crews. I want you to
See the white apartment building?
starboard.
Past that far boat.
Here. Sit up. Here we go, dogs. We're going to get in it. We're going to get in it. Ready? One circle.
And she's trying to jockey to get the inside of that corner.
Starboard. Instant stay port. Yes, dogs. Yes, dogs. Stay in our rhythm. I got a line. We are making them move. Get ready for the next 10. Yep. You ready? Sit up now. Legs shove. Legs shove. Yes. BC to starboard. Sit up and hang. BC to starboard. Yep. They're moving. Yep. We're walking. We are moving in all crews. We are hunting.
So that's what that can look like in traffic. And good job by her holding that line on the white apartment building. Okay, so now when you come out of the big turn, the last part of it is deceptive and it is sharp. Okay, so a lot of teams will want to hug that orange buoy line, and that's fine. Here's a good example. When you come around that last bit of it, it may take 5 or 7 strokes of pressure from your starboard side to be able to hang this turn. This is the most dangerous spot on the course. That's why they call it Dead Man's Curve. And this is where the most accidents happen on the course. So if you can get through this arch cleanly by yourself, that's the way you want to do it. So pay attention to the crews off your starboard side and get ahead of them or fall behind them if you can to get a clean line through the Elliott Bridge, because this last bridge, as you go through it, you're actually going to diagonal through it to starboard to get a straight line and the cleanest, fastest course for this final turn. All right. So this was a big one a couple years ago, and we just happened to be in position to see it. This is the Team USA men. They started ahead of the University of Washington. Washington caught them right before the big turn, so they're gaining on them right before the Elliott Bridge. So this is the sharp part of that corner. They're coming into it, and technically the USA should give the right of way here and leave Washington enough room to get around this corner. And this is why you want to try to go through solo if you can. They didn't give them enough room, and then boom, you can imagine words were exchanged. Blades flying, words flying, and the US team actually got a 60-second penalty for that. Okay, so that's a real example of how dicey it can get in there. So again, if you can go through by yourself, you know, by either increasing pressure to get ahead or falling in behind, that's a place where it's going to be potentially very helpful and safe. Okay, so here's some more examples. Now, ideally, you're going to want to diagonal through that arch and come out by the far end of that dock. Those guys, they started steering too late, or they didn't have the power to hang around. This is just tragic. These guys caught a crab in the worst spot on the course. And then this crew that's passing them on the outside, as a result, is actually forced to go through the far arch. And that just had to have cost them at least 30 seconds right there. If it were me, I might have stopped and had my ports dig in and then go through the center arch. It's that much of a disadvantage to go through the Cambridge Arch there. So again, late turns here. And that's how messy that can get. So as you're be ready as you're coming around the sharp part of that turn, get your starboards in it, get your starboards on it, and have them help you crank it around so you can come through with a good line. And I'm going to show you this line in detail here in a second. Yeah, this coxswain is like, I'm not going through that Cambridge Arch. I would have done the same thing. So that was a good job on their part to just have the ports hold it so they could get through the center arch. So good save there by that coxswain. Here you're going to see somebody, you know, decide they're going to go for the Cambridge Arch, and then check that out. They're still going to have to check it down to hang the turn over there. So that is just a ton of wasted time over there and dangerous. All right, so the line you want to have through the bridge is you're going to hang that corner. You're going to have your starboards help pull you around to get a line to diagonal through the bridge. So when you actually go through the bridge, you are not steering. You are heading straight over towards the far corner of the dock at the Windsor Belmont Hill Boathouse. At that dock are 2 or 3 green buoys that, you know, are there to protect the dock. This is the one buoy that I always put under my starboard oars because you're diagonaling over and your chances of hooking it are minimal. So you just beeline right over there. Do not follow the orange buoys. Cut right across to that final turn. Put the green buoys under your oar shafts.
Legs, shot.
And here's the textbook version from Pete Cipollone.
Press send. Press send. And now I'm going to come off the buoy line and we're going to pick up the other side. Yeah, 4. Yeah, 4. That's it. Here we go. That's it. Legs. Good. Coming around the bend. Now, 800 meters to go. Let's do it. Press send. Press send. I'm calling on all 4. Sit up tall and breathe and dig down deep.
Corner's over. He's diagonaling through.
Here we go. Yeah.
He's pointing just to port of that
Very good.
dock of spectators.
That's it. Press send. Yeah, Gabby. Take them home. Drive it.
Yes. Sha. Rudder coming on now to the starboard side. Here we
Now
go.
you're gonna be returning,
Yeah, 4.
just following the shore around.
Yes.
You're gonna see the green buoys come up on starboard here.
Coming through. All right, no one gets started. We're going to come close to it, Doc. No worries. Here we
He's
go.
gonna put that buoy right under his oars. And there it is.
Boom! Yes! Boom! Yes, this is it. This is the last fucking turn. And down you're back on starboard. One more, baby. Okay, now even. Sit up! Sit up! Yes, yes, yes. Right, we got this, we got this. Now swing it. 155. Buoy under port. You guys got it. Sharp! Sharp! Yes! All right, that's it. Guys, you just trust that fucking turn. Now swing, Jen. Baby, swing! Let's swing! That was crew 7. That was 7 crews. Now swing it through. Swing it through. Okay, guys, I got my eyes on the last buoys and the last turn. Here we go, Liz. Send it, Liz. Woo! Yeah. Yep. Nice. We're good. Now sit up. You guys got this. We're coming in. We're
Here
coming
comes
in.
the dock.
Now sharpen. Yes. Sharpen. Sit up. Hands away. Step. Hands away. Last turn. Step. Hands away. I got my eyes on the buoys. Those are the last
There you can
buoys.
see the green one coming up.
That's it. Now break away. Step. Swing.
And you just hug that shore right around. You can keep your blades 5 feet off of that shore and you're fine. All right, here's a view in a single. This is Ben Davison. He starts out at bow 26 and he's catching some action as he comes through the Elliott Bridge. A little more maneuverability in the single. And we've got this 360-degree camera on the boat, so you're going to get to see everything from all views. So here he's catching up to 2 other singles as he's coming through the bridge. So he's hugging the orange buoy line because he wants that to have the inside on the turn. There's the Cambridge Boat Club. But now as he comes through the bridge, he knows that he wants to get over to that starboard shore. And there's 2 boats there, but now he has caught them. So this is where, you know, he's on these boats and he's on the outside. And especially in a single, this is where you can be a little more strategic. He's going to actually pause a second here. Yeah, I mean, bow and stern touch, that's not ideal. But then he waits, and then he gets his line, and then he cuts to the inside. Okay, 500 meters to go once you come around that turn. So this is where you can hug the starboard shore, and once you come around that last turn, you're going to see a straight shot to the 2 yellow triangles. You want to aim for the middle there. And about 20 strokes on the line, you're going to see a boardwalk on your port side. And so that's your key that you know you're about 20 strokes from the line. And then once you cross through those 2 yellow buoys, it's super important that you keep paddling so that you don't clog up the course and cause a chain reaction that forces someone to have to stop before they cross the line. Here's what that map looks like. So you cross the finish line, you're gonna see, there'll be a launch down there at the end, and it's a row of dotted white buoys that you cannot cross, and you just have to keep going until you get to that launch, and then you can stop, and then your race is technically done. Okay. So one more time, we're gonna go down the course in a high speed, and this time we're going to show it to you from both bow and stern. That tends to be helpful for the scullers as well who are here watching this today. All right, here we go. BU Boathouse through the 2 yellow triangles. Again, going through that BU bridge, single file if you can. Green buoys off starboard. Magazine Beach, make sure you stay to port of those green buoys, especially as you come around the last bit of the turn there at Magazine Beach. That can be a dangerous one. Yep. And then you are going to enter the powerhouse stretch. Watch out for those small boats. There's the Riverside Boat Club. And pick your arch based on traffic, center or starboard arch, the Cambridge shore. You're in the powerhouse stretch, 1 mile down, straight shot through here, come out of Western Avenue, set up for the Weeks. You're looking for that blue dome, and you're gonna try to hold that line as long as you can. There's the turning tree, start your corner, come out pointed on the center of the Anderson Bridge. This is the halfway mark of the race, the Weld Boathouse. And now you've got the turn to starboard through Anderson, 250 meters to get your line in the inside of the next turn. The big turn to port, 2 miles are down. Use that white apartment building as your guide for the outermost edge of that orange buoy line. Follow that buoy line around. The last part of the big turn is going to be sharp, might take 5 to 7 strokes of power from your starboard side. They'll be cheering for you at the Cambridge Boat Club. You diagonal through that Elliott Bridge. And then the last turn to starboard as you come around, 500 meters to go. Look for the boardwalk off of port. That's your mark, 20 strokes to the line. And here we are. Cool. Awesome. So those are my points on how to steer the race. And now I'm going to hand you off to John Lambert, who's on the Rules and Appeals Committee. He ran the Rules and Appeals Committee for many years, and now he is going to share with you how to navigate the course and not get a penalty. John, all you.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're watching from. I'm pleased to give this presentation. So could I have the first slide, please? So I'm going to, after Yaz talked from the cox's role and competing, I'm going to talk about the umpire's role and penalties and how to avoid them. So as Yaz said, I'm a member of the Rules Committee of the Head of the Charles. The chief referee is Laura Kunkelmüller. So what makes it special? Well, it's a large regatta. These numbers are this year's numbers. It's 2,239 entries. That's well over 11,000 competitors from more than 620 clubs and colleges from 40 different US states. Now, in normal years, we have competitors from around 25 different countries competing in this major event of the International Rowing Calendar. Of course, COVID has reduced that number greatly, unfortunately. For the majority of the crews, it's your only time of the year you race on this body of water. And with its distinctive twists and turns, its narrowness in spots, the requirement to pass through multi-arch bridges, it's clearly a coxswain's race. And it can be, as you've seen, very difficult to pass or be passed without getting in another boat's way. And for that reason, we have a set of rules to encourage you to stay apart. Next slide, please. So here is the course from the bottom right, the Charles River Basin, where you assemble before the start. And from the start line, that red dot number 1, and then just on every bend and certainly on every bridge, every dot represents an umpire station. And at each of those stations, there's between 3 and 5 umpires, depending on the busyness of the spot. So every inch of the river is under an umpire's eyes. Next slide. So there are responsibilities of the umpires at these spots. They're to ensure the fairness and safety of racing and to determine if there are violations of the rules that we've put in place and to assign appropriate penalties to the crews committing violations. Next slide, please. So safety. So while it's the primary goal of all the actions and decisions of an umpire, and indeed the reason that we have rules. So the officials are concerned with the safety of all competitors and volunteers and officials on the race course and in the training and launching areas. But remember, while safety is the primary concern of all officials, the responsibility for safety rests with the individual crews and athletes, and especially with the coxswains of Cox crews. So another point about the umpires, they're alert to crews and athletes in distress. If a rower collapses or a sculler flips, since every inch of the river is on an umpire's eyes, they're usually the first to see a problem, and all the umpires have an emergency number with them and can contact emergency personnel immediately. They're the primary observer of unsafe conditions and advocate for rowers' safety to the regatta officials with a protocol for stopping the race. The long-range forecast right now seems pretty good, so I don't think we're going to get unsafe weather conditions. The second goal of the actions of an umpire are fairness. So ideally, only factors that determine the outcome of any race should be the skill and abilities of the athletes and crews. Although in head racing, it must be acknowledged that the starting order plays a role. You can be unlucky with slow boats in front of you, causing passing situations that may slow you down. Only bow number one has the opportunity for the perfect course. And remember, that's an opportunity, not a right, if they're being caught up by bow number 2 or 3. The athletes are depending on the umpires to observe the race, determine the cause of any incidents, if it's incidents of interference or buoy violations, cutting the corner, traffic pattern violations. They determine the penalty for such infractions and report them with full written documentation to their judge and the chief referee. The athletes do get the benefit of the doubt, and as in all sports, actually, if an infraction is not observed by an umpire, I've said it's unlikely given the number of umpires at each spot, but it can occur. It's not going to be penalised if an umpire didn't see it, but we have a lot of umpires to ensure that the chance of an infraction being not observed is minimal. Next slide, please. So now I'll go into the rules review and the penalties. So, and I'm going to talk about all of the aspects here, the buoys, the crossing the racecourse, traffic violations, interference and passing, and so on. Next slide, please. So what are the rules of racing? Where can I read them? Where can I find descriptions of the traffic patterns on the river? Next slide, please. So it's all online now. And next click. If you go online, this is from this year's website, you will find the website. Now, if you click on competitors, you'll get this picture, and you can see here is rules and guidelines. So then if you click on rules and guidelines, next slide, this is what you'll see, and you'll see that there's new rules or updates to rules for this year. General entry rules, you've all entered now, so that's not so relevant. But then there's rules of racing. And so if you click on rules of racing, next slide, next click, this is what you'll see. And you'll see a whole set on the race course, the traffic rules for racing and non-racing boats, practice rules, starting procedures, section 10 in particular, racing. And then section 11 is if you do get an infraction and you wish to appeal, how to go about it. And section 12 is some guidelines and responsibilities for all crews. If you click on section 10, there's the rules of racing, for example, disregard for safety, coxswain on board, the buoy violations. So you can look at the rules in this way. Next slide. And this just summarizes the new rules, mostly the entry rules, but there is a rule at the bottom about the start line approach, which says that any competitor who crowds, forces contact with, or otherwise creates an unsafe condition, including and not limited to severe collision with another competitor in the starting chute or before BU bridge, may be given a 60-second penalty. So requirement for safety and keeping away from boats occurs to everything that's happening in the starting chute as well. Next slide, please. Next click. So, safety rules, I will now take you through in detail some of the rules. Number one rule, 10.1, is a safety violation, disregard for safety. Any boat showing a blatant disregard for safety will be severely penalised. There can be time penalties, they can include disqualification. So, safety causing collisions is inherently unsafe, and that will be penalised. Next slide. So now the course. The course is bounded by buoys, and this is for racing crews now. So while racing, you must stay on the course between the orange buoys on the Boston side of the river, on the port side of the crew, and the green buoys, which are on the Cambridge side of the river, on the starboard side. And where there are no green buoys, the Cambridge shore marks the course boundary. And that's Racing Rule 10.3. So now all blades, as you've seen from Yaz's videos, all blades may go over the buoys, but the hull must stay on the course. The first buoy violated by the hull will result in a 5-second penalty. And any subsequent buoy results in an additional 10-second penalty per buoy. And remember, one missed buoy has been known to prevent someone from winning, and that's certainly been true historically. Now, there is a risk, because the shortest line round a bend is to have the hull as close as possible to the orange buoys. For example, if it's a bend that's turning to port side, but rolling the hull along the buoy line, putting them under the riggers, one has to remember that the buoy line can never be a perfect art due to wind, due to waves, due to depth changes during the day, from the time the course line was set to when your particular race happens. The depth of the river we don't control. It's controlled by a dam down at the end of the Charles, opening into the ocean, and sometimes the people in control of the dam let out more water. There'll be a bit of current, and the depth changes, and the buoys themselves will move. So, and oars can snag on a buoy line. I myself have been had an oar. My blade entered the oar just above the buoy line, and in pulling it through, it wrapped around the oar, and the boat came to a dead stop. It was a 4. And so it is risky to be on the buoy line. It's the shortest course, but one has to acknowledge that risk. And because the buoy line can never be perfect, if a buoy pops up on the wrong side of your hull, you've left the course, and you will be penalised. So a crew that has left the course may only return to the course when it's safe to do so. So, for example, if you've gone way off the course for whatever reason, you were forced off or whatever, don't panic. Don't just try to turn and get everyone just rowing. Pay attention to other racing crews that are coming round the bend where you have maybe gone off the course. Don't just, I've seen people just panic, set off to get back onto the course, and T-bone crews that are racing on the course. So don't do anything that is unsafe, and you certainly don't get to the finish line quicker if you T-bone someone else. So next slide. So the other aspect of buoys are when you're not racing. The boats should keep to the right, as a coxswain's view, of the orange buoys at all times when racing and also when in the travel lane. Furthermore, the Cambridge Boat Club bend, the Dead Man's Curve from Elliot Bridge through, and then the Weeks Bridge turn, they will be double buoyed on the Boston side. So there's the orange buoys that mark the course, and then there's Between them and the bank, there's a set of white buoys, and they're areas marking tight areas. So the travel lane, where there are white buoys, is between the white buoys and the bank. The area between the orange buoys and the white buoys is out of bounds for hulls. And if you're going downstream, persistent incursion into the out of bounds area may be penalised, and it will be penalised if you end up interfering with a racing crew. Remember, the racing crews can, if they wish, put the blades over the orange buoys into that no hull area between the orange and white buoys. The reason for this white buoy line is to make sure the boat, downstream boats travelling towards the start, stay well away from the orange buoys so as to not interfere with racing crews. And please take that seriously. Just imagine what you would feel like if you were racing and a non-racing crew got their oars too close to that orange buoy line and clashed with you. So interference with a racing boat by the hull or by blades will be penalised, and if it's blatant, it may result in disqualification. So even before you get to the start line, you may be disqualified. So please pay attention to travelling in the travel lane, keeping away from racing crews. Next slide, please. So traffic rule, in the traffic rule 7.1, any boat showing a disregard for safety at any time during the weekend, including during practice. So this could happen on Thursday. It could happen on Friday afternoon after the scullers and doubles racing on Friday morning. If you show a disregard for safety at any time, there are marshals and boats all over the place, officials. They will try to identify you from your blade colours and so on, and you can be given a 60-second penalty, or maybe even disqualified if such disregard for safety is blatant. So remember to observe the traffic patterns during practice as well as during races. Indeed, I would venture to suggest that it's during practice that there are many collisions by people not paying attention to staying either on the race course if you're travelling upstream on the race course, or staying in the travel lane if you're going in the travel lane. The practice traffic patterns and so on, they're illustrated in the online pictures. So as coxswains or as scullers, it's important to know these before you go onto the water. And in the travel lane, especially on the day of racing, it's a firm paddle, no stopping to watch, no power strokes, except in the areas where you've got a dead straight shot, which is below weeks. Anywhere where there are bends, no power strokes. Remember, there are eights mixed with singles, mixed with doubles. So warm up only in the designated areas, which you can find under Traffic Rule 7.5. Next slide. One thing to note, the traffic pattern for return to CBC, this was introduced for the first time, the last time the race was held in 2019. For crews launching from Cambridge Boat Club, which is just near Elliot Bridge, the crews have to finish and then follow the dotted line all the way around to near Newell Boathouse, where the stop sign is. And then there's an umpire's launch there, or a race official's launch, which will allow you to cross when there's a free shot to cross, so you don't interfere with racing boats. And then there's a return lane, which is the dotted line on the Cambridge shore all the way back up to Cambridge Boat Club. So following that course pattern is only for the people launching from Cambridge Boat Club. But for all racing boats then, that entire stretch on the Cambridge shore has now a green buoy line that marks this return lane between the green buoy line and the shore. So pay attention to the fact there may be scullers, doubles, quads, fours 8s returning to Cambridge Boat Club. They're not racing, and they're in a travel lane that's marked by green buoys and the Cambridge shore. Next slide, please. Crossing the racecourse. Only cross when it's safe to do so, and it's the responsibility of every crew to keep clear of racing crews. I can't emphasize that enough. If you have to cross the course to either get to your launch site or get to the travel lane, make certain there's a safe crossing interval between racing crews, which is typically between events, and wait for a dock official or other personnel assigned to the launch sites to indicate that a safe crossing is permitted. And then when you can, just cross promptly and get off the course as quickly as you can. Any action by a crossing crew that causes a racing crew to either slow down to avoid collision or alter course may result in disqualification. So again, look at the traffic patterns before you get onto the river, even before practice. Next slide. The traffic patterns of the bridges, he has alluded to this. Note that the BU bridge is at the top, so this is going from top to bottom. That actually the out of the slide has slipped a little bit. You can see the X marks the out of bounds arch of BU bridge, so there's only one viable arch, and furthermore that one arch is only wide enough really for 1/8 or 1/4 to safely pass through. I'll speak to that later. And then the Lars Anderson Bridge, which is the second up from the bottom, that the Cambridge Arch is illegal too. And if you go through either of those arches, you get a 1 minute time penalty. The Lars Anderson Bridge Arch is just too close to the dock of Weeks Boathouse, of Well Boathouse, sorry, and that's why it's dangerous and a prohibited arch. Next click. So that says in words what I've just said. Going through the right-hand arch, coxswain's view of BU Bridge or Lars Anderson will result in a 60-second penalty. Or going through the leftmost arch of any bridge, apart from the fact that's highly dangerous because that's the downstream traffic lane, so you're likely to be in a head-on collision, you'll also get a 60-second penalty anyway. If it's a collision, you will be disqualified for an unsafe practice. We have had one crew once go through a Boston Arch. I don't know how it happened safely without collision. It did happen, and that crew did get a 60-second penalty. Next slide, please. Interference and passing. So this is the meat of what happens during racing. Interference is the failure to yield right of way to a safely passing boat, therefore impeding their ability to row a fair and safe race. So generally stated, the rules of the road, or I should say rules of the river, are that boats racing always have rights of way over non-racing boats. The passing boat has the right of way as long as the pass can be executed safely. Now, if you're a fast boat, note that the right of way does not preclude the higher responsibility of avoiding collisions or avoiding squeezing another boat off the race course. You can't just come up to a boat that's on the orange buoy line and squeeze them off the course, because of course that's pushing them into a downstream traffic lane, which is dangerous. Competitors have been warned that the most egregious offence umpires are watching for is the non-yield interference. That's by a slower boat not yielding to a passer, and that's rule 10.5. Next slide. So the responsibilities of the boat being overtaken. So movement to yield must begin when the passer closes to within one length of open water of the boat being overtaken. And that's one length and closing. The yield should be completed by the time the passer has closed to within about half a length. Failure to yield when there is adequate room and time to do so will result in a 60-second non-yield interference penalty. In passing situations, the overtaken boat must, in a timely manner, yield and give suitable room to the line chosen by the overtaking boat. This may require missing a few strokes as the overtaking boat completes its pass. The slower boat, the overtaken boat, is also not entitled to cut buoys just to avoid a clash of oars. So it's important to stay on the course, to stay within the course bound by the line. If the passer then clashes oars with you and you're as close to the orange buoy line as you can be, actually the passer will get interference penalties. They can't force you off the course, and certainly do not steer off the course. It is dangerous because this downstream traffic, the head-on collision doesn't bear thinking about. Next slide, please. So what are the penalties? So if you're observed by an umpire to be not giving away in a timely manner to allow a faster boat through, you'll be given a 60-second penalty. If it happens again later on up the course when another boat comes up and you still don't give away, you'll get a 120-second penalty. And if it happens again further up the course, you will be disqualified. It's actually almost a moot point because by then you've got 3 minutes worth of penalties and you're already last, most likely. So steering the course safely, even if you're a slower boat and you know your crew lacks the power to compete with the fast boats, steering the course safely without risk of incurring penalties is part of the skill required for the fastest race time achievable by your crew. And that applies to slower boats as well as faster boats. Next slide, please. So the responsibility of the passer. In passing situations, you have the right of way on the side you choose, the side you come up on, only if and when a safe pass can be accomplished. So note rule 10.6, the severe collision. If a pass is attempted, the passer, you can't press the right of way to overtake to the point of severe collision. You must allow sufficient room for both boats to stay within the race course. If a crew causes a severe collision, that crew may be assessed 60-second penalty. And a severe collision time penalty, and it may result in further sanctions under Rule 10.1. If 10.1 is any boat showing a blatant disregard for safety may be disqualified. So in any collision, the umpires are there to see if the offending boat is the slower boat or the passer. And so passing safely is key if you're a fast boat. Next slide, please. So a 60-second penalty is huge. It's as much as 7% of the race time. And why do we make it so severe? It's impossible to fairly credit the boat interfered with time lost. And collisions put rowers and equipment at risk. So the reason for the very severe penalty is to encourage crews not to interfere with each other in the first place. Next slide, please. Causing contact that could result in injury or damage is considered unsportsmanlike and unsafe. So safety is always first. Now, if a slow crew or a couple of slow crews or a collision between crews in front of you completely blocks your path temporarily, we hope, don't panic. Don't wonder what to do and then end up piling onto this collision or piling onto a slower crew that's trying to navigate a bridge. First, you won't get to the finish line faster by just piling on, causing a collision. Paddle lightly if necessary. Yaz had a really good example of that, where if their Fast 8 hadn't paddled lightly coming into Anderson Bridge, there would have been a 3-boat pile-up under the bridge arch. Paddle lightly or even stop rowing for a couple of strokes if you have to, or take a wider course if absolutely necessary. You'll lose less time by missing a few strokes than by doing something that results in a 60-second penalty, or worse, disqualification if it's considered blatantly unsafe. So safety is always first. Next slide, please. Conduct, some remarks about conduct. I've gone into safety. Incidents of unsportsmanlike conduct by a competitor or crew, including the use of personally abusive language, shall be reported to the jury by the witnessing official, usually an umpire, since there's umpires all over the course. The jury may impose penalties ranging from reprimand to time penalties of up to 60 seconds to disqualification. It depends on the nature of the incident. So personally abusive language is not allowed. And please note Racing Rule 10.10. Public urination is strictly forbidden and will result in disqualification. And this can happen, this is before the start really. Now some miscellaneous rules. Boats without shirt number or bow number may be penalised or disqualified from starting. It certainly makes it difficult for officials to figure out who you are. And so you may not get an accurate time. If you're late to the start for any reason, await instructions for a marshal or starter. In fact, indicate to a marshal that you're late and you wish to start, but wait for their instructions. Any boat just starting out of sequence against the orders of the starter will be disqualified. The regatta will probably start you. If you're late to the start, you'll probably end up starting last after all the other boats have gone. But the most important thing is wait for the starter's instructions before you do anything. Don't just cut in and assume it's okay. It is not. Boats must finish the race with your coxswain on board. You can't actually jump out before the end. They can't throw you out. And note this BU bridge: for any competitor who crowds, forces contact with, or otherwise creates an unsafe condition, including but not limited to severe collision, with or for another competitor in the chute or before a BU bridge may be given a 60-second time penalty. Now note, the BU bridge arch, as I've said, is only wide enough for really 1/8 to get through safely. It's perhaps about 20 to 25 strokes beyond the starting cones. So passing it's possible. I've seen it in single sculls, a fast single sculler overtake a really slow one before BU bridge. But for the bigger boats, 4s and 8s, it's inadvisable prior to the bridge. Pay attention to, when you're in the starting chute, to the quality of the rower rowing in the boat that is starting right in front of you. If you think you're going to be closing the approximately 10-second gap in about 10 strokes, just don't crowd them at the start, because passing is really only possible once you've popped through BU bridge. If you shoot right up on the boat, you're going to have to now stop or slow down or paddle light. Otherwise, you're going to force a severe collision right under the arch. Once the slower boat has got into the arch, there's no place for them to go, and it's only wide enough for one boat. So that crowding someone at the start is inadvisable, and please pay attention to that. Any boat that disregards the published practice rules on Friday may be penalised or disqualified. And remember, there's no practice on Saturday or Sunday at all. Next slide. So I'm just going to conclude by just some frequently occurring situations. Next slide. Next slide, please. And the most common violations happen with bow loader Cops 4s. And many of the issues could be avoided if there was communication between the coxswain lying down in the bow and the bow rower. So if you're a slow crew, if you're being caught by a faster crew, the bow rower can let the coxswain know on which side the faster crew is approaching, and perhaps can call out open water distance, like 2 lengths Boston side, 1 length Boston side, so that the coxswain can steer appropriately to avoid interference. And the earlier you let the coxswain know that there's a faster crew coming up, it allows time for the coxswain to figure out where to steer your boat to get into a position where you're going to avoid any interference. If you're a fast boat, if you've overtaken another slower boat, the bow rower can let the coxswain know when there is clear water enough to steer up will. Remember, the coxswain can't see whether you've cleared the slow boat behind. So timely communication can help prevent a fast crew from causing what I call a cutting off collision with a slower crew. If once the faster boat is half a length clear of a slower 4, the coxswain may not realize that they're clear and start to steer for a corner, for a bridge, and just cut off the slow crew. The slow crew is on the course rowing its race, and so it's really unfortunate if a faster crew ends up with an interference penalty because they haven't cleared the slow crew they've just only partially overtaken. So discuss in advance, you coxswains, with the bow rower what you would say. After all, the rowers are rowing full power. I'm usually a bow rower in any boat I'm in. It's not like you can say whole sentences. You just want to keep the commands clear and short so that the coxswain knows what to do. And so please discuss them. So here's a classic interference. You've got boat A that boat B is caught up now within half a length and it's around a bend. And now it gets to a quarter a length and boat B actually is forced to paddle for a couple of strokes to avoid a collision. And is this interference? And the next click, yes, A failed to yield the shorter course. So when boat B is coming up tail to tail, boat A should have yielded, moved to the outside of the bend. The coxswain sitting down, if this is a cox 4, in the bow of boat A, unless the bow rower tells them, is probably completely unaware that boat B is closing and closing fast. And so that's where communication can help. Next slide, please, is another typical case. Now, in this case, boat A did give way on the inside of a bend marked by the green buoys, and boat B is now coming through on the inside. However, as frequently occurs on the Charles, a right-hand bend is followed by a left-hand bend, followed by a right-hand bend, followed by a left-hand bend. If the boat speed of boat B is now not sufficient to have got clear of boat A, it now has to steer this second corner marked by the orange buoys. It has to stay a little wide because it's still overlapping by half a length. And again, this is where the coxswain sitting in the bows of boat B may not be aware that there's still a third or quarter length overlap. And if boat B comes across to steer the inside of this bend, may force a collision with boat A as boat A tries to stay on the course. And so once you've chosen to overtake, as boat B did on the inside of the green bend here, you now have to live with the decision you've made. And this happens especially in 8s, where the relative speeds can be relatively close. So you can stay alongside each other for 2 or 3 bends. You each have to allow space for the other boat to stay on the course. But especially for bow rowers, be careful. So, next slide. And so with this format, I'm not sure how we're going to address questions, but next click, Please race hard, steer well, enjoy the experience, and be safe. Most importantly, just stay away from other crews, whether you're fast or you're slow. And you will. And I see from the chat, unfortunately, we don't have a good facility for taking questions. But hopefully that was helpful to you to understand what the umpires are seeing and that they are there for your safety and to ensure fair racing. Thanks for listening.